Hello, friends. This is working with type on Chapter 7 for the 2013 Adobe Classroom in a Book CC textbook. As usual, we're going to go through different parts. This section works with dealing with type, which I believe is one of the cornerstones of Illustrator, is taking type and modifying it. Illustrator has a lot of other great properties, but what it can do with text is amazing. The book only does a little bit with the text, and afterwards there will be subsequent videos on how to really take type and push it to the next level. So I have my end file open. I download my files from PeachPit. There's an end file, start file, and then a text file. We're importing text. So let's look at what we're creating. And it looks like a flyer, which we need to start thinking about what flyers consist of, how do they look, can you make a dynamic flyer. And here we have a little sort of handoff right there, and then the handout right here. So what we're going to do is open up the start file, and it's going to be saved as zoo.ai. So we'll go to File, Save As. Save my file. And once the spinning wheel starts to stop spinning. All right, so we're going to be working with type. Like I said, it's one of the most powerful tools. We're working with point type for the very first. We're page 213. Point type is a vertical or horizontal line of text that begins where you click and expands as you enter the characters. Each line of the text is independent. The line expands and shrinks as you edit it, but doesn't wrap to the next line until you add a paragraph return or a soft return. Entering text this way is useful for adding a headline or a few words to your artwork. Next, you'll enter some lines at the bottom of the poster. So we're going to ensure flyer 1 is chosen in our artboard. So artboard 1. And we're just going to zoom in the tools panel. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And we're going to go make sure we're on our type layer. Now this is where your layers gets really interesting. Having your text on a different layer. Remember, if you ever need a new layer, you can click create a new layer, drag out. Layers are fairly useful for organizing all those little bits. I'm a big fan of them, as you'll see that I'm always going into my layers. The layers are very similar as they are in Adobe Photoshop, but they are different. So I'm going to select the Type tool, keyboard shortcut T. And once you do that, we're going to click on the white arrow. Above the left on the vertical guides, we see these teal guides right here. And we're going to click here and just where the cursor appears, type zoo tails in uppercase. So I'm just going to put my caps locks on. And with my type tool, we created a point object. So now I'll take my selection tool, keyboard shortcut. Actually, you can't really pull your keyboard shortcuts when you're in the type tool. So that's always a bummer. So I'm just going to pull it from there. And notice we have a bounding box around the text. We're going to drag the right middle bounding box, not the circle, to the right. Notice the text stretches as you drag on any bounding point. So we're not taking this circle, we're just texting this, and you see we notice we've dragged it out. to kind of work with the scale. So we can do edit, undo scale, or just a Command Z or Control Z. And that's a way to add point type. Next, we're going to create area type, and that's where you draw the box around. You create the boundaries where you want. It's helpful for when you have a lot of text, when you have a lot of characters, horizontal and vertical. So we're going, it says view select, view smart guides. We've already left them on. So we're going to choose view sign. So that's actually in the bottom. If you kind of scroll down, and that's this box here. I'm going to select the type tool around the cursor, and we're going to just kind of drag it. In the book, it has a picture. And we want it to have a width of 1.5 and a height of 1. Remember, we have our measuring box right there. And with the new type, we're going to type Safari Zoo, without a period, capital S, F, A, F. With the selection tool, we can notice the bounding box around the text. We can drag it around to kind of wrap it around. So as you can see, I'm going to take my selection tool so you can see. You can move it around and adjust can make it into 2 different lines. And we're just going to drag it away from the blank area in the picture. And deselect. And we're just going to hit Command S to save our file so far. So the book talks about area type and point type. There's threaded and there's ports, and this is when you have extra boxes to add extra columns, and where you find those when you're using point type and area type. Threaded and ports are really important once you get into Adobe InDesign, because you have all those big bodies of text and you need to fill them up, and there you can link 2 different type frames together. Book will get in that later. So converting between area and point type to 15. So we're going to select the type tool again, and I'm going to click on it. We're going to make a point type object in the white space between the orange and white tail. So here, and it's going to say Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. We'll move this text later. So and we're going to zoom into the text so it fills our screen. And we're going to take our selection tool. We notice the bounding box around the type right there. And we're going to drag the right center bounding point to the left. Since it's point type, the text stretches. And we're just going to do Command Z to undo to reset the text. Now, if the text at 6:30 p.m. needs to wrap below the text Thursdays at space. An easy way to do this is to convert the point type to an area type, which is what we'll do next. Of course, you can always enter a paragraph or a soft return of the type, but later you may want to resize the type area. So we're going to position the pointer over the annotator. Now this little lollipop looking dude is the annotator off the right edge of the type object. So once you see, if you hover over, you see that little T, and we're going to click once up. And it'll say double click to, as you can see that as it popped up right there. So we're going to double click it, and that's converts it from a point type to an area type. That filled annotators right there indicates it's an area type object, and a hollow annotator indicates it's a point type. So that if you're very confused, if someone sends you a file and you're not sure if it's point or area type, this is a way you can make that distinction. We're going to drag the lower right bounding point to down and to the left until the text at 6:30 p.m. wraps under. And there we go. We're going to hit a File, Command S, and we'll take a break for this video.